Hey, hope you're having a great day. So let's talk books that I did not like in 2024. I read 110 books, and I'm not going to say it was a great year last year for reading, but it wasn't my best. And I've got a few that I've got some beef with, and I mean some beef. But again, these are just to start out, these are just my opinions. Some of these books may be some of your favorites, and if that is, that's great for you. But for me, they just did not hit the mark, and that's okay. These are just my opinion. You can have your opinion too. If you don't like them, you don't like them either. If you love them, you love them. Not everybody is the same reader, and that's okay. So don't be coming at me in the comments, okay? I like what I like, and it is what it is, all right? So let's get started. The first is The Secret Fiance. So this is kind of like a interconnected standalone series. So I guess that's the best way to describe it. So it's about a family, and the grandma is like the head matriarch, and they're all like super, super wealthy, and it's about each of the family members of like the brothers, and like there's one sister, and there's like I think four brothers. I think it's like the fourth or fifth book in the series. I have read all the other ones beforehand. I really enjoyed the first book in the series, but something about the last few books have not been good. But this was specifically, it made me so upset. Like it genuinely made me so upset. It was like a wannabe Iron Man vibe, and specifically for this book, it's supposed to be kind of interconnected, but this one I feel like kept flipping back and forth in time, that you had to know the events of what happened in like all the other books previously, and I just didn't like it. Like it literally was so disconnected in my mind, and I was really disappointed. I don't know, something about this series has just really gone like way off field for me, and I just didn't really like this book specifically. Next, I know a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but One Dark Window. Now, I do not think this is a bad book or this is a duology. I do not think it is bad at all, but it's just something about it. I don't know. It didn't hold my attention. It just wasn't there for me. I think if you're wanting to get into fantasy or unsure about fantasy, I think this would be a good series for you. But as somebody who absolutely loves fantasy, as a diehard fantasy girl, this was just not the book for me. I don't know. I feel like it was almost too simple of a magic system. So this follows kind of a mysterious type vibe of fantasy world, where the magic system, everybody has tarot, or like certain people have a tarot cards, and that gives you magic if you hold the card. And she is kind of like possessed the main character from one of the cards that she had touched. And it's an interesting enough storyline, but it just something just didn't hit the mark for me. Like I read all the way through the first one, I was like, yeah, okay, it was all right, and I moved on to the second one, and I just dean up the second one, and because it's just a duology, it's a quick read, but something about it just wasn't it for me. I don't know what it was. I feel like maybe it was just too simple, or just didn't hold my vibe. Has a little bit of romance in it, but it just wasn't it for me, and I don't really know why. But it, I think I was just so hyped for this book because I've been told like it's one of the best books out there. You're gonna love it, Cheyenne. Like, oh, this is it. And I feel like it was just a letdown. So maybe that's why I was on my like worst books of 2024, and I say that very loosely, but it just was not for me. I would still suggest it to certain people, but it's just not a book for me. The Nice Guy. Okay. I have issues with this book. I don't normally DNF books because I'm not a quitter, and I mean that in the best way. I have a hard time giving up, and I feel like DNFing is giving up, and so I have a really hard time doing that because I'm like, well, maybe it'll get better later on. Maybe it'll get better at the end. Like, what if I like it? And then ends up, if I don't like the book, I end up not liking the book from the beginning to the end. So that's my own problem. I'm working on it this year, But this book, The Nice Guy, I don't even think I made it like 4 chapters in. So I think it was in the first or second chapter. It's about like a pair of veterinarians, and I grew up with horses, okay? I've ridden and shown horses like almost my entire life, and it really bothers me. And I mean, across all forms of book, doesn't matter if it's about just animals or not, but like even like historical novels, if you don't research what you're writing about, don't write about it. Don't put out misfacts or like miscommunication in the books. Like, there's no reason to. Look it up before you write about it. Like, if you don't know anything about veterinary school, don't write about it. Like, it's literally as simple as that. In the beginning of this book, they were at this like vet call, and they like one of the characters like going to like go get the horse, and like she's like, oh, I was like going to go get the horse, and I put the bridle on the horse to bring it in the barn to check him out. And I'm like, what? If you don't know, Bridle is what you use when you go to ride a horse. It is not what you use to just bring a horse in. That is called a halter. And for some reason, that just really bothered me, and that stuck in my mind. Like, yes, it might have been a little slip up, but like, bridle is something with a bit. Halter just goes over their nose just to hold on to him so you can bring him in, do whatever. Okay, and that just kind of bothered me. And then later on in the book, again, it was just like maybe 4 chapters in, something else happened, like animal related, that will like so outlandish and so untrue. And I had to DNF the book. It was just not right. Like, if you're going to write a book, research about it first. Don't just throw it out there because you want to write a veterinarian novel or you want to write a history novel. Look up the history, look up the facts before you write about it. There's like this, I will honestly say, it really just pissed me off. That it was inaccurate, and I don't like that. There's no reason to not be inaccurate. You could have just Googled that stuff. You know what I mean? But anyway, I digress. Moving on. Live, Love, Ranch. Okay, so I got in this as an arc. Something about this book, it was just really slow paced. So she is British, and her aunt passed away, but her aunt had a ranch in Montana. And so her aunt passed away, left everything to this main character, and so she ends up flying over. She's like a yoga influencer kind of girl, and so she goes over here and is trying to like get together. She's like, well, do I keep the ranch, do I sell this ranch, like, what am I supposed to do with all this, because her life is back in England, but she's just going through a breakup. And it had all the key things to be a really good book, but it didn't hit the mark for me. I felt it was really slow. I didn't love the writing style, and it was not it for me. I don't There's something missing out of this book, and I just didn't really like it. It just wasn't it for me. Throttled. Okay. Lauren Asher, I really enjoyed her billionaires, Dreamland Billionaire series is what it's called. It's like the one that's kind of like Disney World vibes. But and then this specifically is an F1 romance, and it's just like the two rival guys, and like the one that like hates each other ends up dating the rival guy's sister. And something about this just wasn't it. I don't know if Lauren Asher is just not the like writer or author for me anymore or what, because I was just really disappointed. And I love F1. I really do enjoy F1. Like, I love almost everything about F1, but it just, I don't know, it was just lackluster to me. Like, I finished it, but it's just something about it was missing, and it just felt off. It felt wrong, and it was just kind of like maybe overdone, I think is the best way to put it. And I don't know, it's hard to find F1 romance out there, but it wasn't it for me, that's for sure. Hawk. This is I feel like it's labeled as a dark romance, and I don't really feel like it's a dark romance. It's dark. There's some romance in it, but is it considered dark romance in my opinion? No. I feel like I was really hyped up for this book, and it just wasn't it for me. And I know a lot of people, especially friends, who were just like, yeah, this is like one of my favorite books. And I was just like, I don't like it. So it follows the main character. She's been with her boyfriend since college, and she's living in this house with him. Ends up like one of his buddies ends up coming to live with them, and ends up like he's just getting out of prison. And so she's like kind of dealing with that, and like he's addicted to drugs to a certain degree, and there's like a couple of really heavy topics and like bad things that has happened to him, and it's just like it didn't hit the mark for me. And then one thing I think what really ruined it for me was the cheating aspect in this book, and that is not a trope that I agree with. It does not matter if you're not in love with your partner now. If you don't love them, you don't need to be with them. And if you're gonna be with somebody else, make sure you break up with somebody else before the cheating ensues. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have to be cheating. I think maybe that's what ruined it for it. It was the cheating. It's just I just don't agree with that morally, even in a book. You know what I mean? Like, I can't do it. And like again, it was to me brought up as a dark romance, and it's dark. It has romance, but it is not a dark romance book. And I mean, it was shocking at the end, like the mystery that was unsolved, but I didn't hit the mark for me. Bad Luck Charm. I wanted to love this book. I was really excited for it, but it's like first few chapters in, it was a little slow to get going. And she like runs a bookshop, and like this guy, he's like kind of the boy wonder of the town, super popular, super wealthy. And it ends up happening that there's like this like murder right outside her like bookshop, and I couldn't do it. Like, the murder was of a donkey, and anything like I just couldn't do it. Why murder a donkey? like in a book, like even in a book, like why would you do that? Like there's something about it that just didn't connect with me, and I just didn't like it. I couldn't get past that. Like I was really trying to like just like go back that last chapter, but it kept coming back to my mind that like somebody killed a donkey right outside, and like they were thinking it was her, and because she didn't have like cameras in like this alleyway where this like thing occurred, and I couldn't get into it. I'm not into like the thriller type things, and I kind of feel like this is kind of where it was going to a certain degree, and I don't know. It wasn't it for me. It was not it. All right, all right. I know. I'm gonna get so much heat for this, but I need to talk about it. I have been. This has been on my TBR for a while, but I need to talk about it. I have so much beef. I have so much beef with this book. Finding 13 and Keeping 13. I have so much beef with this book series. So much beef. Like, I don't even know how to explain this. Like, so this is a sports romance. They're like high school age. Is this, I wouldn't necessarily say this is YA, but it's kind of YA. It's set in Ireland in like the 2000s, and I'm gonna tell you right now, it was not what I was expecting. I thought this was gonna be a fun, cute sports romancy read. That is not what this is. It is very heavy thoughts, vibes, troubles that are happening. So pretty much the main character is like 14, 15 years old. She's been heavily abused at school and bullied at school her whole life, and she finally gets the opportunity to change schools and goes to this more like private school, and she's just trying to make the best of it, and she ends up kind of getting together with this rugby guy who does not want anybody to be with him, and he's like several years older, and lots of things happen at home. I don't even know if this book has trigger warnings, but it should, because there's lots of abuse that happens, like familial abuse. There's lots of physical aspects, emotional aspects, the bullying. It's just, it took me a long time to get into this book. I literally don't think I got into this book until I was like 80% in, and then I was like, oh, I'm in it, because then things started to happen. Like, I get it, was setting on the storyline, and it was just really sad. But then going into the second book, Keeping 13, I think I made it like 15 or 20% in, and I'm like, this is what's happening. Like, that's it. Like, and then the thing was, I started to predict everything that was going to happen, and it did. And like, I literally just started to skim at that point, and I'm just so disappointed. Like, I feel like it's really targeted to the younger generation. I don't feel like they should be reading this. I didn't like the age gap specifically in this book. She's like 15 and he's like 18, and they're having you know what I mean, and having, I don't know, I just, something about it just wasn't done right. I hated it. I think it was just so sad. It was so incredibly sad, and I'm not one to read those sad books. Like, I know this stuff happens out in the real world, but I don't want to read about it. When I read a book, I want to escape, and it wasn't even a good emotional reaction for me. And I feel like, again, it was not marketed the way I think it should be. And I know this is a lot of people's favorite book series, but I'm telling you right now, this was not for it. It was not for me. I think it was super heavy. I didn't like the dynamic of the relationships in it, and I expected more. And it was so heavy. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I wasn't expecting such a heavy series and topic in this, but it just wasn't for me. It was definitely not in the book for me. I don't know that I'd even suggest it to anybody, because it was just, it's heavy. But if you're into the sad stuff like that, I don't know. It just wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. But that was it. Those are my least favorite, loosely saying worst books of 2024. Let me know if are any of these books some of the books that you weren't interested in, or some of the ones you're maybe going to cross off your TBR with my opinion. Don't let me dissuade you from these books either. This is just my opinion, how I felt this last year. But take this with a grain of salt, okay? Take it with a grain of salt. These are just my opinion. It's how I feel. But I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.